Hi everyone, my name's Louise, and this is the fourth in 4 videos about the emotional ecology for early childhood education and care settings. So this theory, as you probably know by now, came out of my PhD research on the emotional environment of 2-year-old daycare. And today we're going to look at the child realm, which encompasses post-human factors and rackets and a life script. So hopefully you've had access to the free resource of information, and it asks in there for you to look at those dimensions and then maybe lead some conversations. So open what we call a contested space. It's staff meeting, it's supervision, it's training day. This is kind of some exciting theory. What does that mean for us, and what does it mean for the children that we serve, basically? So, what is a post-human factor? So basically, it's anything that's outside of the emotional realm of the human directly. So the biological systems and all of those sorts of things that may influence your emotions. So, for example, it sounds like a complicated phrase, but it just acknowledges that emotions are shaped from aspects outside of the human. So, for example, on a sunny day, usually we feel uplifted, don't we? We get vitamin D from the sun. It's all like, oh, yay, yay. And then when it's like grey or thunderstormy, some people feel quite stressed and anxious. When it's windy, well, we all know what happens to children when it's windy. Well, all of those things. It basically says, how can I deliberately use some of those things in my practice? So I looked at this and I categorized it into nature, and chemical compounds and things like gravity. And then I also looked at things like the weather. So when I was observing, it was an extreme heat wave. It was during that year, off the scale actually. And what I saw was a lot of lethargy, lots of kind of like lolling around, all of those things. When children were interacting with water, gloop, pushing toys along, pouring water onto plants, doing all of that sort of stuff, interest and engagement and joy was rising. I know you use all of those things in your practice, but do you do it as a deliberate stimulation for joy? Like when children are feeling like stressed or anxious, or you're feeling stressed and anxious, we can use some of these things. Gravity was a really interesting one, the way that children were actively engaged in watching, observing, pushing toys, rolling toys, all of those things, seeing things fall from a height, pouring water from a funnel up high and watching it, and how that affected me emotionally. Like I said, lots of interest, lots of joy, all of those things. So that's post-human factors. So how can you use it deliberately in your practice, and how do children respond to post-human factors here? Interesting things. Last one of the 6 different elements that I'm going to talk to you about is rackets and a life script. And this is from our friends in the counselling field. And it says a life script is unconscious ways in which we deal with our emotions every day, and how that leads our behaviours. And rackets is the idea that there are a protection racket around our feelings, and we literally sometimes do not portray the congruent emotion to what we're thinking. So for example, are there preferred emotions? Do we, when children are upset, stressed, anxious, angry, are we, with all good intentions, are we rushing children through those emotions to get to the other side, to get back to a state of balance or joy? And that's often, and I can only speak for myself, you may be completely different, but I find it quite hard to tolerate my own distress sometimes. So, one of the questions I often ask people is, when you feel angry, do you feel guilty about that? How do you tolerate your own anxiety? When you cry, do you feel ashamed? All of those things, it means that we feel an emotion quite purely, and we suppress it, or we hide it, or we get another feeling behind it and feel bad about it. And that's really interesting to me. And then when we're talking about, the emotional environment, I was reading policies from settings, and it was talking about, sometimes children will be distressed and we must support them, and they may need extra care and consideration, absolutely, don't they? But the preferred emotion there is we need to get them back to balance. And when I'm angry, and maybe I'm a child and I haven't learned that self-regulation yet, so there are some interesting behaviors. How do people help me to label the emotion behind my behavior, all of that emotion coaching you do? And do I tolerate all emotional states for children? How do I react to them when they're stressed and anxious? Do I give them room but not enough room, or room but a little room, not too much, all of those? And I haven't got the answers for all of these things. What I'm really interested in is how you, as a setting and a bunch of people who are doing this fabulous work that you're doing, how do you make those decisions, and how do you label those emotions? So, for example, if a child falls over, and they're kind of like go like shy like they do we say, oh, do you feel embarrassed? Do we label that, or do we just say everything goes under the umbrella of sad? If they hit their friend and then, run off and hide, you're like, do you feel guilty that you hurt your friend? Or are you just saying, oh, do you feel sad about that? And that's a great start, isn't it? But actually, can we label some of these emotions? And again, I don't have the right answers. I'm just here to open that contested space. So go forth, everyone, carry on with your amazing work, and good luck with some of these ideas.